All right, so this is Brad Listi. This is the Otherppl show. It is Monday, and I'm going to do a monologue. It's going to be a standalone thing, and I'm going to try doing this on Mondays by semi-popular request. I've had a lot of people ask me why I stopped doing monologues in the episodes proper. And I used to, if you're new to the show or you haven't listened to the older episodes, I used to do extended monologues in pretty much every episode where I sort of rambled about something and tried to have a laugh or be silly or something. Just tried to be entertaining. And then that part of the show got phased out over time. I think to the relief of many. But there are, I think, more of you, based on my experience of things, actually miss the monologues, which puzzles me a little bit. I never felt 100% comfortable doing monologues, but I think, at the outset of this show like I was supposed to do a monologue. I felt like it was the thing that you did if you had a podcast. You sort of had to talk about something as the host before you got into the interview, but then I kind of was disabused of that notion or disabused myself of that notion and just stopped doing monologues because I didn't want to annoy anyone. And I didn't want to do a stupid monologue before a good interview or to have some fancy author on the show and have them wondering why I'm rambling for 12 minutes before we get to the interview. It just started to become uncomfortable for me. Maybe I'm overthinking it. I don't know. But what I thought might be, at least in an experimental sense, a good compromise would be to do the monologues as standalone. Like Monologue Monday. Can we call it that? This way, the monologue is its own thing. It has nothing to do with episodes where I talk to an author, so they will not have their good names associated with me talking about whatever I'm going to talk about. And this way, the monologue people will have access to a monologue. And if you're in the non-monologue camp, you don't have to listen on Mondays. You can just skip it. So what can I tell you? I will, I guess, tell you about a trip that I took to the desert last weekend. It was Memorial Day weekend, and I drove out to the desert with my family, and we stayed in a house with a pool. Sort of like the last good weekend to be in the desert before the summer comes and the heat really starts to crank up out there. I know some people like it. I mean, and you can always hit a weekend out there that's not too bad. But generally speaking, people going out to the desert tend to go out to the desert between October and, say, Memorial Day. And then the summer comes and those towns kind of empty out. But we were there. The weather was actually beautiful, and we were in this house. The kids were swimming. It was beautiful. It was fun. It was a nice way to spend the long weekend. And we were out by the pool at night. I think we were making s'mores. We were either, I don't know if we were making s'mores, but we were sitting by this fire pit, just hanging out. It was dark. It was beautiful. And all of a sudden, my daughter says, "What is that?" And just points up to the sky. And we look up to the sky, and there is a line. It's very hard to describe it exactly how it looked, but essentially like a long line of lights moving across the sky slowly. It almost, like if I had to compare it to something, it's sort of like if there were a disc in the air and the disc had like windows along its edge, and those windows had lights in them. It sort of looked like the disc was slowly rotating in the night sky, and there were lit windows, very distant. But suffice it to say, it was unlike anything I had ever seen in the night sky ever in my life before. And it stopped me cold. It stopped all of us cold. None of us knew what it was. And so we immediately take out our phones and start filming it, as one does. But of course, the image quality is hit and miss at night. And when you're trying to film something in the sky, it's like when you try to take a picture of the moon, never quite measures up. But we take out our phones and we're filming it and we're talking to one another and we're trying to sort out what it is that we're seeing. And I was genuinely in awe and a little freaked out, but not in a bad way. It was a little spooky, but it was very cool. And there was a real sense of awe. It was, oh my God, what are we seeing right now? I'm seeing something in the sky I have never seen before. And I feel like I might be seeing a UFO. Which is something that I have always wanted to see. I've always wanted to have an authentic supernatural experience in my life. If you've listened to this show for any number of years, you've probably heard me complain that I don't see ghosts. Ghosts don't visit me. That sort of stuff just doesn't happen to me. I'm not in communication with other realms. I don't have access. I'm not special. And yet I hear these stories that are often quite compelling about people talking to the dead and seeing ghosts, and chairs are moving across the room, and, all this sort of stuff. And I would love to experience something like that. And so, something that I feel would offer me some confirmation that there's something else out there, or would deepen the mystery in a real way. So standing there in the backyard of this house in the desert and looking up into the night sky and seeing this slowly moving string of lights sliding across the sky. And I should say too, they were moving up and to the left. So it was clearly not a falling star. It wasn't like some sort of meteorite dropping towards the earth. This was moving slowly up and to the left. And it seemed like it was the edge of a disc that was spinning. That's what I was seeing. That's what I was telling myself I was seeing. And I was filming it, and my daughter was filming it, and I think my wife was filming it. And my son was starting to get nervous. Started asking us if the aliens were going to blow up the world. Like, his imagination started spiraling. He's 8. So we're trying to calm him down, but we're also kind of excited in an unbridled way. Like, oh my God, what the fuck is in the sky? It was very startling and magical. And we ended up getting, and I should say too, that all of a sudden, at a certain point in the experience, the lights vanished. They sort of melted into the atmosphere. It was pretty sudden. And this squares with a lot of accounts that I've heard, in documentaries or read about, where people will see something in the sky and it'll look like some sort of alien spaceship, and then it just vanishes suddenly. That's like a hallmark of UFO sightings, is their movement and their ability to sort of suddenly dematerialize. So all of a sudden, these lights in the sky dematerialized, which I took to mean that we were witnessing superior alien technology at work. And it turned out that we got some pretty decent video on our phones of this phenomenon, where you could really see it. It wasn't as good as being there, but it was pretty good. And it was enough for me to share. And so, of course, I go straight to Instagram, thinking that I had just seen something truly extraordinary. And I made this post. I don't know if any of you listening saw this. I got to believe there's like a very small number of people who saw this post while it was up in my Instagram feed. But I was very earnest. I was genuinely moved when I wrote this little caption underneath this video that I posted, where I was like, I've always wanted to see a UFO. I'm in the desert. I didn't say this in the post, but I felt like I was in the right place to see a UFO. I think that may be added to the dynamic where I'm like, I'm in the desert. Of course I'm seeing a UFO. I'm out here in the wasteland. The aliens have come. So I write this very earnest Instagram post where I'm talking about how I've always wanted to see a UFO, and this feels like the fulfillment of a dream, and I'm in awe. I mean, all of it. Just trying to share. I was like, this is crazy. You guys got to see this. And about 10 minutes go by, and we're all just sitting out there by the pool, my wife and my 2 kids, and we're just kind of talking excitedly back and forth and stammering a little bit about what just happened. And I want to say my phone rings, or I called my friend Pat. It's a guy I grew up with, I talk on the phone with all the time, and we get on the phone together, and the first thing out of my mouth is like, he called me, and I said, are you seeing my Instagram? Because I had just posted on Instagram, and I was like, are you seeing this? And he's like, no, let me go check it out and I'll call you back. And so he goes and checks it out, and then like 10 seconds later he calls me back, and before I can even say anything, he's like, oh, that's not a UFO. That is a Starlink satellite. And he said it with like such a matter-of-factness that I knew it was true. He was so certain. You know how you can just hear in someone's voice when they know? So there was this experience of suddenly being deflated. And I think that this sensation of being deflated was compounded by the fact that Starlink is one of Elon Musk's companies. It's his technology. It's this satellite internet communications technology. So I am crestfallen on the phone. And my friend Pat is laughing at me. And I start telling my family, like, oh no, I think it was a satellite. It's Elon Musk. It's not a UFO. We didn't see a spaceship. And then my daughter goes online and immediately confirms it. There's like 1 million images of it, that look exactly like what we saw. And she's reading aloud from something on the internet about how this happens with regularity, and she's confirming that there was a Starlink satellite visible over the desert in Southern California and all this stuff. So it was over almost as soon as it began. It was definitively not a UFO, and my dream was shattered. That was it. It was a feeling of genuine whiplash. It really felt that way. I went from being like, oh my God, the mothership is here. Extraterrestrial beings are in our atmosphere and they want me to see them and they're trying to communicate. This is one of the best things that's ever happened. It's a once in a lifetime reckoning with the deepest mysteries of existence. To, within a matter of like 10 minutes, oh no, it's not a UFO. It's just the space toys of little Lord Fauntleroy, Elon Musk. The richest, human being on the planet, a sociopath, a bully. He's obsessed with space. It's his, you know what I'm saying? A hyper-capitalist. It was just it was a yo-yoing effect. But for 10 minutes, I was as happy as I can remember being in recent memory.